Alrighty, good morning. Happy Tuesday. Once again, I want to start off with a meditation, but this time extending it a little bit longer. Start with guidance, leave you unguided, and then we can reflect on common obstacles that show up, just how we end up reacting to some of these obstacles, whether there's thoughts, emotions, or sensations that come up. As always, wall is available, blocks are available, whatever you need, it is available. Different postures, whether you sit cross-legged with knees bent on your shins, that option is available there. And there's a possibility that someone walks in late. That's okay. Let me be the one to open my eyes, not you. You don't need to. You can open your eyes at the end of your meditation to see who it was, but no need for it to happen during. Okay, unless right now. Right now it's okay. Hi, good morning. So for the rest of us, let's take our time. Let's get settled. Even before we focus on the breath, the whole hope is that we can ground down into our bodies. Which for some of us just means that we have to take a minute or two to check in to see how we are feeling physically and mentally this morning. So you might be able to observe if you're holding on to tension. Common areas include the shoulders, the neck. Notice how it feels to sit upright. If any adjustments need to be made around the hips. And it may take a minute or two to find this comfortable shape for you. But once you do find that shape, I make a simple request. That you remain still in that shape. In Buddhism, the term is known as adityan, strong determination. That once you settle into this seated posture, legs crossed, legs extended, hands on your legs, hands in your lap, whatever that is. That you set a strong intention to remain. No unnecessary movement of the legs, no fidgeting with the arms or hands, no need to open our eyes. And no doubt for the first phase of the practice, as we are slowing down, as we are settling, that request can be obliged. But as time passes, you will notice obstacles that demand some form of your attention. The hope of our meditation practice is that we can be aware of all that is within us, around us, happening to us. But not everything demands our reaction. So as the body continues softening and settling, awareness, the mind's attention can shift towards breath. The softest space to connect to would be at the nose. Feeling inhales and exhales as they enter and exit through the nostrils. And you can develop quite a deep connection to this space here. Some of us may tune into the feeling of temperature, noticing the temperature of breath in versus breath out. For others, you may even feel the movement of breath as it passes by your nose hairs. The touch of the breath around the rings of your nostrils. And whatever that sensation is that you can connect to, we don't have to get too attached to it, but it is there. The sharper our mind becomes, the more we can feel within us. This meditation practice, it requests that we maintain a delicate balance. That this mind of ours remains alert, awake, fully conscious as it remains attentive of your breath. The body is bound to soften, finding a space of relaxation. But the request here is that the mind doesn't indulge the softness of the body, for then the mind may start to become dull and drowsy. As we maintain this delicate balance, a mind that is continuously being sharpened to stay with the breath, distractions may come up. Things outside of our control. Sensations on the body, thoughts and emotions internally, things will surface. Noticing, acknowledging, accepting, to hopefully release, to set aside, so that we can remain undivided with our breath. So with these instructions in mind, let us soften. Let us soften that much more. As we continue to breathe, as we allow ourselves to sit and be. Just before we come to the end of this meditation, take a moment to check in once again. Check in with your state of mind, your quality of mind at the end of this sitting session. Is there a particular word, thought, or a feeling that you can use to associate with how your mind feels at this point in time? When you do feel ready, maybe shoulders move. As always, hands can come together. Palms can begin to rub. Heat can be created within your hands as you then take your time to wash this heat over your face and then gently reopen your eyes. So about 20 minutes of silence and about 5 initial minutes of guidance. Now, I didn't stare at all of you while you were meditating, so then just taking a few moments for some honest reflections. 1, were you able to remain completely still for the whole sitting?
It was harder this time.
No moving of hands, no moving of legs. Was that able to be done? Maybe yes, maybe no. One adjustment may have been needed at some point in time. These things are all right. Was there a desire to move at any point in time? So it's one thing to not move, but it's another thing to notice that something wants to move, something wants to change. Was the mind able to settle down as time passed? Did the mind speed up at any point in time? There's no guarantee that we start with this practice of slowing down and settling and quieting down the mind. In a perfect world, it would remain quiet. But then sounds get made, things come up, stomachs were grumbling. It is one thing to notice the stomach grumble. It is then another thing to throw on all the mental thoughts that are associated with that. I'm hungry. What should I eat later? All of these other thoughts that pair up with a sound that gets made by the body. The body wishes to move because something feels like it's aching. It's one thing to notice that the knee is aching, but then it's all of the other things that we throw on top of it that make the experience of just noticing an achy knee so much harder to deal with. We heard some sounds of weird birds. I don't know what that was at one point, a crow or something like that. Things come and go. Were we able to come back to the breath? Doesn't matter. It could be that some thoughts are very superficial, so we can nip them right then and there. They come in, they leave, no problem. But every so often, one thought drags in 10 other thoughts. And those are sometimes the tricky thoughts to let go of. Because you notice one thought, and the mind gets very easily distracted, and then you hitch a ride as you ride the wave of 5 other thoughts that come up. There's going to be times when you sit to meditate where your mind wanders away for minutes at a time, could be even half of your whole practice gone to the thought. We still have to accept that this is something that is worth working with. It's not necessarily that we have to believe that the meditation practice was unsuccessful in any sort of way, even if the mind has become distracted for that long period of time. There is still something that we can cultivate in that moment of noticing that the mind has wandered away. How did it feel to be silent and sitting for that long? Typically, in previous classes, previous sessions, meditations are shorter. There's a lot more guidance provided. How did it feel to guide yourself through the practice of coming back time and time and time again? Was it difficult? Was it effortless? Was it natural? How did that experience feel? If there's anything anybody wants to share, by all means, this would be when.
I was able to sit still, but I picked up my shoulder is sore. I kept going through my list of, okay, gotta make this appointment, gotta do this, and I try to bring myself back to rest each time. And then as I was making the list, I thought I'm gonna do this with kids as well. So trying to let go of the lists.
And this is where these are things that we set aside, right? They're realities of life. You can't ignore these things, these appointments that need to be made, the list of things you need to do for your children. But it's always just coming back to, okay, well, what are you doing right now in this moment? You can make your list, sure, but are you going to be able to act out on those lists at this point in time? No. And sometimes just that little bit of acceptance is enough for you to set aside the list. Most of these things, knowing you probably already have them planned somewhere. So you can always come back to them when the eyes open, when the body starts to move. But it is very challenging because some of these things, they may be pressing on your mind more so than the other. And it is constantly just that you don't want to scold your mind to come back onto the path of meditation, but you need to usher your mind back on. You have to guide it very compassionately to come back. These are things that are important, the lists that you have. We're not ignoring their validity, but it's just understanding that what we are doing at this point in time is important for our well-being. And so one of the things that we have to understand is, I guess one of the things that we learn to do here is rest the mind. It's not shutting off the mind. It's not that when you go to sleep, every single organ in your body turns off, every single muscle turns off, but you learn to rest. And what feels counterproductive to us here is that when we rest the mind, it feels very unproductive. And we have this association that when we are unproductive in this sense, that it is not necessarily worthy of our time. But we have to value what that rest can offer us. Giving your mind that space to just sit and breathe and not stimulate itself hopefully allows your mind to be sharper when you then open your eyes. More clear-minded could be a word that we can very easily associate. But it is a mind that is, unobstructed by these different things that plague the mind, all of these different things. So, you might have 15 things on your list that the mind is trying to process and prioritize. But when you open your eyes and you've worked mindfully through your meditation practice, the hope would be that the mind just naturally can figure out what is priority number one. And once again, these are things that are not easy for that simple reason. What we are trying to do when we sit to meditate to some degree is rest our mind. We're not turning off the mind, because that's very impractical, very unlikely to happen. The mind will still continue to move. But by resting the mind, you give energy to the mind. And a mind that is more energized, more restful, more calm, can move from a space where it doesn't need to react to everything happening. It can it can flow very naturally with the way things are. Does that make sense? Challenging to do nonetheless, but that is what we are trying to do on one hand. The mind stays fully awake, but it is resting in that space of wakefulness. And so this is where, I cannot teach you meditation. That is one thing that has to be made very clear. I can teach you to be mindful. And there's a lot of things to be mindful about when we sit. Because I have no visibility of what is going on inside your head. Externally, I can look at most of you. Legs are crossed, hands are in your lap. You look like you're meditating. You look like you're meditating. But I don't know what's going on. Therefore, I have no means of going inside your head and smacking around your brain to get it back on track. That would be your duty. That is your meditation practice. What I am tasked with doing is getting you to be very aware of all the things that stop you from meditating, which with all the distractions that come up, which is all of these obstacles, these realities of life that we carry that hinder us from being fully present in the moment. And so as we learn, so you talked about your list, and although you only talked about it, some of us can probably relate. We all have lists in our head. So we understand that this is not a meditation problem for you. This is a problem of the mind or something inherent in the mind that we all learn to work with as we work with the meditation practice. Anybody else want to share how 20 minutes of silence felt?
I have two things. So you said the word rest a lot, which is how I would have described the meditation today. My mind did wander, but instead of having 10, 12 thoughts, like a minute or a second, it was less. And so less to me is winning, right? Like just having less thoughts. The distractions outside, I was able to incorporate them into my breathing. So when I was focusing on the breathing, I was like breathing bird. Like I was able to, and then when the bird went away, that sound went away, but I didn't let it distract me. I just incorporated it into my rhythm of my breath, which is weird. I don't know how to describe it.
Okay, this is how you would describe it. So this is how like meditation teachers would really poke at you to see how mindful you are. Did you notice the bird on an inhale or an exhale?
I think on an inhale.
Did you notice the phone vibrating on an inhale or an exhale? Did you notice your stomach grumbling on an inhale or an exhale? This is the level of awareness that we can develop. But it requires mindfulness. It requires you to be very aware of the direct moment experience. So I was only able to notice like one time. I heard a phone vibrate. I was like, on an inhale, I heard a phone vibrate. Let it go. On somebody's exhale or on my exhale, I heard a stomach grumble. But it's one thing to notice in the moment. Can you recall it after the fact as well? So these are just like small details to poke at to just see how aware you are of present moment experiences. Likely, it just dissolved into the flow of your breath, which is great. To sharpen that faculty of awareness that much more, that is how we tune the breath that much more. That is how we tune the mind into the breath that much more. That as you're breathing and sitting and breathing, on an inhale, I heard a bird. Just label, right? You don't have to figure out what kind of bird it is, but just sound of bird, sound of stomach, sound of phone, creak of door, whatever it is. Can you sharpen your sense of awareness to the degree that you can notice on which cycle of breath it has come and gone on?
You want to do that?
You can do that. You have the capacity over time with a sharp enough mind to notice.
Isn't the whole point not to notice though? To pretend it's not there? So that's why I'm confused by what you're saying.
No,
You want to notice it.
it is reality as it is. If it enters your sense organs, it is truth. Whatever you hear is truth. Whatever you smell is truth. Whatever you see is truth. Whatever you taste is truth. Whatever you touch is truth. And meditation as a practice is us observing the truth of this present moment. So in this present moment, on an inhale, I heard a door creak. That is a convoluted sentence, no doubt. But it is just that sense of awareness, because no doubt, unless you plug your ears, plug your nose, eyes are closed so that we don't have to really address. But unless all of these things are sealed shut, you can try as hard as you want, but if there is somebody screaming, you're going to hear it. And what we would just simply want to do in that sense, not want to do, but we have the capacity of doing rather, is tuning ourselves into that moment so that on my inhale, this is what I heard. This is what I'm feeling. So that I can let it go on the next breath out kind of deal if needed. Whereas for most of us, it's almost as if 50% of awareness is with breath, 50% went with the sound. But if you can tune your breathing into what is being felt, what is being heard, then it's almost like that thing is happening at the same time with your breath.
Yeah, and that's definitely how it felt. And previously, it would have like spiraled me. I would have started going, oh, bird, and then like that would have been a gateway for me to start thinking about my list or the kids or whatever. But I didn't do that, so I thought that was
Progress, absolutely. That is one of the most realistic ways that we can measure progress. It's not about stopping your thoughts. Good luck. Good luck if you try to stop, because you're just creating a very binary experience, and these binary experiences create that much more internal conflict. The more tangible thing that we can do is slow down thoughts, whether it's the volume of thoughts, the actual quantity of thoughts. We can quiet them down and slow them down over time. One of the things that we have to realize is that a lot of the stuff up here is just noise. It is no different than the sound outside. But we can very easily tune that out, but it's sometimes harder to tune out all of the stuff that's happening in here. And just to, if I were to play music inside this room that had lyrics that you would be familiar about, at some point in time, the mind may just try to sing along with the song. The mind does something similar up here. It is aware of all the thoughts that come and go, but every so often it indulges one. It opens the book of one of these thoughts to start reading that much more in. So this one thought becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 4. And what we're hoping to do is that, say the thought of the list comes up. No problem. Number 1 thing gets put on your list. Write it down, whatever. But there is every possibility that that list can end at 1 for the time being. That before you write down the next 8 things on your list, you're like, oh yeah, list can be made later. So in that sense, it's your ability to pause in that moment of noticing that you may start to get carried away by a distraction. To set it aside, to come back. And no doubt that doesn't mean that the list is gone forever. That thought of the list may still come back later on in the meditation. But it's just that gentle reassurance of, don't worry, list. I haven't forgotten about you. You will be there when I'm finished. I will come back to you when I'm done. Same thing with achy knee. Achy knee comes up. We notice it, we can acknowledge it, but we don't have to do anything about it. If you can understand that you were given 5 minutes roughly to get yourself settled into a seated posture. So the hope there is that you're not putting yourself in a position that is naturally uncomfortable or naturally painful. That you are relatively free from pain, physical discomfort. So the seat that you have taken is generally comfortable. That ache in your knee may have always been there to some degree. But when you're moving through your day, or the ache in your back, the ache in your shoulder, when we're moving through the day, when we're thinking and doing and all this kind of stuff, keeping ourselves busy, the mind doesn't care to dedicate energy and attention towards these small aches. But the reality is this ache is probably just still as small, but we are becoming a lot more aware of it. So what probably through your daily waking hours while you're moving around, this ache in your knee is maybe somewhere around a 2 or a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. Somehow when you sit and you become soft and still, the mind magnifies this experience. So what looks like a 2 or a 3 or felt like a 2 or 3 on your daily waking hours has now started to bubble up that much more. What that tells me is that there is some layer of what we feel in the body that is mental. There is a physical layer of experience, and then the mind throws on its own judgment of the experience. And that is something that is directly within our responsibility to work with. The more energy we let the mind bleed into that physical experience, the more the mind takes over the experience of the knee. Whereas if the mind can take a step back, and it can just notice that there is some sensation in the knee. And I spoke about this, I believe, last time when we were speaking of mindfulness of the body. And I'm emphasizing the, because it's not my body. We associate this thing, we get very attached with labels of I, me, or mine. I'm sitting to meditate and my knee starts to make this noise. How dare my knee make all of this discomfort and noise? Whereas if I can take a step back, there is some uncomfortable sensation. We can be very specific. I'll just use the word ache. There is an ache that has surfaced on the knee. Distance has been created. Distance in how I've used my vocabulary. That it's not that my knee is aching, in which I feel that I need to take some responsibility over lessening the ache, the pain, the suffering. But if I can take that step back and say there is an ache, there is some form of an ache surfacing on the knee, it allows me to observe it with a little bit more clarity. That I am noticing an achy knee. I can pause with it. I can rest with it. I don't need to do anything about it. If it gets to a point where it is very overwhelming, I have the power to do something, but I don't need to influence the experience immediately. Does that make sense? So we're not torturing ourselves as we sit. If things become unbearable, you have all the capacity, all the willpower to adjust. But there is every possibility to sit with that discomfort. It's not always the most pleasant experience, and if it gets to that tipping point, we can adjust. But it's knowing that whatever comes from nothing will fade into nothing as well. This ache in the knee came from nowhere. All I've been doing is sitting still. So if it comes out of nowhere, it may last for a bit. I may not have much control over how long it lasts. The only thing I have control over is how much energy I give it. And this is where the negative mental energy will fuel this fire in your knee. Whereas if that energy of the mind can come back to breath, come back inward to yourself, this ember that started to get created doesn't turn into a huge fire. It fizzles out into a little smoke. Does this make sense? So there are ways that we can skillfully work with obstacles. The obstacles aren't the problem. It is how we relate to these obstacles that become the problem. Mental obstacles in the form of thoughts and emotions. In the landscape of a meditation practice, your thoughts and emotions can shift very rapidly. Things can be really calm, really settled, and then something, stomach noise, phone noise, door noise, any kind of noise, any kind of stimulation. Even just simply you say sitting and some light brushes against your eyelids. Your eyes are closed. Some warmth touches your skin. Any sensation that makes direct contact with your body, your sense organs, can rapidly shift your experience. And what we're just trying to do is notice it. Notice it, notice it, notice it. Not everything we notice needs to be reacted to. Not every noticeable action needs to be responded to, but we start by noticing. Because that noticing is that buffer that we give ourselves. Otherwise, it's almost like you get swept away before you even noticed. And that action of noticing is one of the most important things that we are cultivating within this meditation practice. It starts with breath. Notice inhales and exhales. Because this breath will always be with you as you move. And from that, you can notice everything around you from this centering point within you. Any questions? You have a confused look on your face.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I was considering whether to ask this, and now that I've begun talking,
Might as well.
You mentioned music before, and the recurring problem when I try to meditate when I'm here is that I'll often have a song stuck in my head, and I then need to do what you said earlier, figuratively smack my brain, like get out of the song. I'm supposed to be focusing on my breathing. And I don't know, just me or other people have that problem too.
Well, this is like the equivalent of a list for Noreen. Songs for you are lists for her.
Songs are a good thing.
So in that sense, there's different ways to approach an obstacle like that. In a world before mindfulness, maybe you would just sing the whole song in your head. And there's going to be days where the mind has, a stronger sense of control, in the sense that the song starts to creep in, and before you crank up the volume and start singing along, you tune it down. Other days, you might get caught up in the song and then eventually have to tune it down or press pause on the song. This is where I use one of my analogies of sitting at a train station. This is a common meditation analogy that gets used. Our task as meditators is to sit on a bench at a train station. We see trains come and go. These are the trains of your thoughts, trains of your emotions, trains of physical sensations, train of rock and roll and music and who knows. Every so often, without you knowing it, your legs are going to walk you onto a train, which means your mind is just going to get carried onto a train. And some of these trains you'll notice, because as you step on, you're like, oh, I got to step back off. I got to go sit back on the bench. Other times, you'll have sat on the train without even knowing it, and the train has started to depart. You are stuck on this train for a stop, 2 stops, a few stops. But the moment you've noticed that you're on the train, you've made progress. Your legs unconsciously, mindlessly walked you onto the train. Your mind accidentally hitched onto a train of thought. The moment you notice that this has happened is the moment of your mindfulness. That is the moment in which you can make the choice to stay on the train or to take a step off the train. So the point isn't how long you remain on the train. Some things, they just may demand more attention, that you end up riding the train for longer than you'd hoped for. Others, we're able to notice more suddenly, and we can take that step off immediately. But the moment of mindfulness occurs the moment you notice what has happened. In that sense, the moment you have stepped off of the bench to step onto the train, when your mind has hitched a ride on this train of thought, emotion, or sensation. And we don't have to be hard on ourselves, because we know at the very next breath we take, we have the opportunity to step off the train again. And over time, this is where the making the meditation a habit has to be reinforced. I say this often: if you only sit with me once a week, and we did 25 minutes or so, this is the extent of your whole meditation practice. There is no guarantee that the next 6 days, 23 hours, and 30 minutes will be blissful. Unless your mind is somehow super radiant in the sense that 30 minutes is all you need, in which case you should be up here and I should be over there. So this is where the daily habit approach needs to be made. Because the more we can usher our mind onto the path, then at that point in time, it no longer needs to be told to be on the path. It can just walk on the path. Does that make sense? I hope so. But enjoy your songs. This is, and that is the hope. These obstacles come up. Distractions are there. We become mindless from time to time. We don't need to be hard on ourselves when we do it. If we can have a chuckle at it, that is fine. Because that is a sign of growth as well, that mistakes don't end up casting doubt on who you are. Mistakes are simply what you did. And what we did in that sense was we took a step off the path. That is not who we permanently are. We can always bring ourselves right back onto the path. The path can start with each breath we take. And with each breath we take, we reinforce the mind's ability to focus on the present moment, to be engaged in reality with truth. Cool? That's it for today's practice. Cool. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. See you again next week. Yeah.